Two ignorant humans talking about stuff.
So basically, the time to close, which is basically the time we get the contract to the time that we fund your loan, okay?
Yep.
They kind of monitor industry averages on how long that typically takes, all right? So right now, just to give you an idea, in 2013, the average amount of time to close a loan was 46 days, okay? So
Yep.
46 days, that's industry average across the board, start to finish. 2021, so far, the average time to close is 53 and a half days. 53 and a half days start to finish. That's almost 2 full months.
That's 2 months. Yeah.
Close your loan. And what's crazy is something the article talks about is, have you ever heard the term fintech?
No, I don't think so.
So fintech is just financial technology, right? That's just the two of them that they've kind of put together.
Well, why don't you just say that?
Well, because that's the terminology that's used, man. I don't create
He likes
it.
to try to stump me and just like, hey, Donnie, did you know this? Well, no, Mike. I mean, let's just put it out there in front of everybody that I'm an idiot.
I'm asking you like I would ask anybody else. I'm just understanding. So when I say fintech, we're establishing a vocabulary, right? Here's
financial technology. We're lazy in 2021. We don't want to say the whole thing.
Exactly. So because of all the financial technology that's available these days, it's very surprising that it's taking longer to close loans than it used to take, even just as few as 5 to 7 years ago. So why is all that? Why does it take so long?
Wait. Technology is actually slow. Better technology is actually slowing us down.
Well, possibly. I mean, that could be it. That seems like a pretty direct correlation that I don't know if you can make. But hey, we'll go with that.
Sucks.
Yes. So, but basically, there's few people out there that are obviously closing faster than that, like us. But let me ask you, Donnie. You've been in the business a long time. When you're closing a loan from start to finish, first off, what is it? What are you doing exactly while all this is going on? And why does it take so long for some, and why does it not take so long for others?
I was actually thinking about that when we talked about doing this. My biggest thing is if it's over 30 days, I am cringing and night sweats and all that goes along with it. You got USDA loans. I always say, okay, look, it may be 40 days on those because when we get done with the loan, it's got to go to USDA and they have to do their little thing. And sometimes they're behind or whatever. And being in the country like we are, we kind of do a lot of those USDA. But here's a great example. I had a lady call me, and this is a fine example of you get what you pay for. So she called me. She wanted to refinance 2 loans, a primary and a investment property. We went through the whole thing. I told her my price. Everything was good. She's like, well, I talked to this other guy, and he's a few bucks cheaper. Rate's actually the same, but the closing costs are just a few bucks cheaper, And I said, hey, no sweat, whatever. And by the way, anytime that happens, I always say, by the way, that comes from experience. Give me a call if you have any trouble. Let me see if I can jump in, right?
Yeah.
2 months and 2 weeks later, she called and she said, hey, Donnie, I was just curious, she was kind of reeling a little bit. Like, I was just curious about how rates are doing right now and whatnot. And, I've had some trouble with this guy. And I said, when you say having some trouble with this guy, like, you mean you're basically telling me you still haven't closed 2.5 months? Like, well, yeah, I mean, we're not closed. And they're giving me this thing about whatever and this and whatever. And I got the opportunity to tell her that, investment loans and second homes have really taken a beating in the last couple of weeks. And I think we're going to end up doing the deal. But here's my thing on that person. They may have underwriter problems, right? Where, just true getting it through the funnel where we're in 2 or 3 days underwriting. They may be in 2 or 3 weeks. So I'm taking that into consideration. They very well could have had something to do with, appraisal problems, right? Where the appraiser's saying, hey, look, I can't get that thing in. It's going to be, sorry, I get pop-ups. It could be 3, 4, 5 weeks, whatever for the appraisal. And then I sit there and I think, you know what? It could be something about this person is either too busy or doesn't care. And that's where, when I, as a professional, I'm not the guy that just comes into the mortgage business when it's hot and gets involved and yeah, man, I'm slinging loans, whatever. And then it slows down because rates go up and I go do something else. Mike and I do it a little bit different. This is our livelihood and we're going to do it forever and ever and ever. And we literally cringe if your loan is not going as fast as it is. So Mike, those things and some of, they don't care. It's just a numbers game. And if they can get to it, fine. If not, they're just too busy and they can't get to it.
Yeah, I think the biggest separation in most cases is why does it take so long to close a loan? And a lot of times, I use an analogy a lot about when people ask me about other banks. Well, what about this bank or what about that bank? And I'm not going to name any just for the sake of not. But I'll say, well, it's just like anything else. You can go to Harvard University and you can have the worst professor that you've ever had in your life. Or you can go to Tarrant County Junior College, which is where I live, and you can have the best professor. And the experience, regardless of the institution, can be vastly different depending on the people that you deal with, right?
Yeah. So that's a good one.
So in my mind, like when you look at the experience as a whole, number one is it's the individual that you're dealing with. Who are you talking to? Do they make you feel comfortable? Do they give you a sense of trust so you feel like they're going to take care of you and do what's in your best interest? And one of the things that I always explain to people is when you look at, why am I going to do the best job that I can do for you at all times, right? And you touched on this a minute ago where it's a numbers game for others, but not so much for us. And what I mean by that is when you're some of the bigger ones, again, not going to name names, but when you're some of the bigger boys.
We know who they are.
Right, you know who they are. Well, when the phone rings, because they've got, $1 million ad budgets, they've got all kinds of stuff that they pop up online and phone calls and mailers and all this stuff. And so they're just trying to get the phone to ring. And so when they call, somebody's on the other line, they answer the phone, they'll fill out your application, ask you a few basic questions, and then kind of move on down the line. Well, the bad news is that person that you just spoke to has no ties to you, has no ties to your agent, has no ties to anything other than you picked up the phone and called him at that moment, right?
Yeah.
And so when they did that, that person has no obligation to do the best they can do. Because guess what? If they don't, does it matter to that guy? Because he'll just pick up the phone and talk to somebody else, and they'll
because the phone's going to ring. Yeah,
the phone's going to ring. So there's going to be 100 people, and he or she will do their best job to take care of about 10 of them. And if the rest of them fall off, who cares, right? They don't care. Whereas for you and I, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, and it's a low-hanging fruit situation, right? If you got 10 loans sitting on your board in front of you, and 7, you can get 7 of them done. You got X amount of time to do 7 loans. Yeah. You're going to pick the easiest one. You got one that's got a little hair on it, and this guy over here, said they were shopping you. Okay, forget those 2. And then this guy right here, he was kind of snotty on the phone. So, yeah, we'll just call these 7 back. It's definitely low-hanging fruit.
Yeah. Well, and also, too, like what I try to explain to people is that, my incentive in the transaction is I have to do the best job I can from start to finish. I have to explain everything up front and make sure it's really, really clear so you know exactly what you're doing. And I have to make sure that when we get to the end, everything that I told you is the way it was, the way I explained it at the beginning or better, right? That's what I have to do, because if I don't, then your agent that referred you to me, or your friend that referred you to me, or however you got my information, I owe it to that person to do the best job I can, because that's how we make our money. If we don't do a good job and we don't get those referrals, then we don't get business down the road. So it's always in our best interest to do the best possible job we can, because we have to make sure we keep getting those referrals, because we don't have $2 million ad budgets or $10 million ad budgets.
Right.
So people keep calling all the time. So our incentive is to move fast and efficient.
Something to touch on there. However, and I know Mike really well. Some of y'all on here probably do, and maybe some of you don't. But Mike and I are alike in a lot of ways. While certainly you're exactly right. And if you cut right down to the chase of why we call people back, why we do loans fast, why we tell people the truth when things start to go sideways, is because we got to take care of our referral partners. We want the loans to keep coming in and whatnot. But the truth of it is, those kind of things that reason does not wake you up at night in cold sweats, right?
Right.
The reason that happens is because, I don't want to say, oh, we're good to the core or whatever, but we really do care about, we're just so good to the core. But I mean, reality, we really do care. And, maybe it's because we might bump into you at the grocery store, at the, our kids pitching against your kid in the ball game. And, I don't want you beaning my kid, kind of thing. But I think the real reason is because, we literally give a crap or whatever about you and your loan. If it's important, I say it all the time. If it's important to you, it's important to me. People say, hey, sorry, I'm asking all these questions, but it's just something that's on my mind. And, I say it all the time. Like, look, I don't want you at night, right before you go to bed, to think, man, I need to pop 2 Tylenol PM so I can go to sleep because I'm so stressed about this. When you feel that way, I don't care if it's 9 or 1 o'clock in the morning, pick up the phone and call me. Let me answer your question so you don't have to take that sleep aid, right? So I guess, yes, you're right of what you're saying, but also it's about, I really do care. I really want to make sure that you're getting the info you need at the time you need it.
Yeah, no, I agree. And what I'm saying is too, and this goes back to what we were saying, why does it take so long to close loans? Well, it doesn't if you do it right. And the whole thing is that when we get from, I think 30 days is a reasonable amount of time. And I would say, as on average, I think our company was what were we, like 22 and a half or 23
22,
days?
something like that.
Yeah, something like that. So we can move quickly. And most of the time, it's appraisals. Appraisals take a little longer. You don't really, you have a little control over it. You don't. But ultimately, the timeline is determined by you and me, Donnie, because when we put our team in place to make sure that we have certain milestones that we hit at certain points throughout the contract, and there's a deadline every single day to make sure that we get to the end when we say we will, and with ease and convenience. Because that's the other thing is, you can sprint to the finish line as fast as you can, right? But you're going to drive some people with a little bit of headache as you get there, because you're going to be stressing multiple parties along the way. But if you can make your process such that you get all the documentation up front, you make sure the expectations are set where they need to be, and you have a great team to back you up, and you make sure that all the way through until you sign at the at the closing table, that everybody involved, like you said, cares about the process, and make sure that when we get to the end, it's exactly the way we said. That's what makes that so much quicker versus the guy who's just picking up the phone and working through 100 people to try to get 5 of them that end up working out. And then you just sit in the twist in the wind. And every single time you got to find out about your loan, you got to pick up the phone, call the 1-800 number, put in your loan number, put in your social security number. You got to dial it in. And then, we're going to switch to this department. Put your loan number again, put your number, you're just constantly on this phone tree, just spinning and spinning and spinning. And I think that is the experience. And look, getting a loan, nobody's like, wow, that was the greatest thing I've ever done. Nobody ever says that per se, but if you can get to the end and it not make you wake up in cold sweats at night, that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, and we're very blessed in that when we came to Eustace Mortgage, Verity, Prosperity, that group of companies, we were very blessed to have a team around us that are so passionate about the customer, right? And the customer relates to the process. The process is super important to the customer, even though they don't know what's going on, but they want to get to that finish line with not blood in the streets and all the stuff that they got to deal with. I'll call out right now, Kate DeKay and Steve Barton are super passionate about making certain that our turn times, most specifically in underwriting, are way better than industry standard. Like when industry standard is at 4 days, it makes us cringe to feel like our initial submissions are at 4 days. And they're also very passionate about closing. We've got a closing department that is through the roof when they say, hey, I'm sitting on go. As soon as you get that clear to close, we'll zip that package out. And I love the reviews, and we get them a lot. I know you do too, Mike, because you're passionate about making that process, under promise, over deliver. I mean, we get the reviews all the time. Like, okay, maybe it wasn't like eating ice cream at the park, but it was the best loan process I've ever had. And basically, I feel like I didn't do anything. I feel like I did something in the beginning, and then they just called me and said it's time to close. And that right there is the proverbial referral chain of when people have a good experience, they tell them about it. I went to a coffee shop this morning. I've never been there in my life. The guy that was in there, he had broken English to some extent, but he knew everybody's name. That, hey, Sally, I'll see you in the morning. You know, and they were talking and loving on each other basically from afar through the deal. That guy, his customers come back and get more coffee every day. He knew what they wanted. They want that little heart shape in their little foam at the top of it because it makes them feel like they got a little love. I mean, they come back to that guy every day. I love seeing good service. And that's essentially what we're talking about here. Closing your loan is our service to you. And rolling out the Ritz-Carlton red carpet is what we're all about.
Well, and I think anytime you're considering getting buying a house or refinancing your house, one of the really good questions that is a telltale sign to a lot of lenders is just say, hey, how long does it take you? Like, how long is it going to take to close? You know, and if their answer is, 45 days, 60 days, you might want to try to pick up the phone and give somebody else a call. Only because we know how the loan process works, and if it's taken 45 to 60 days to close the loan,
it's not that hard.
Something in that process is broken, and and it shouldn't take that long. So, I think that's a great question to answer. That'll give you a good gauge before you even talk about anything else about how that experience is going to be with that lender. And if it's any more than 45 days, I would say pick up the phone and try somebody else and ask that same question.
Right. And back to my original story of the lady that was doing 2 loans. She called me. She ended up going with the other guy. Then she called me back. If you look at that picture, let's just say they were 0.25% better, which in some people's minds, that's not that much. In some people's minds, that's a lot, right? So wherever you stand, that's fine. But if they're 0.25% better and can't get the loan closed, then that's nothing. That's zero value whatsoever. I think, so they were a few dollars better in the beginning than what we were. And look, I'm not the guy that's just going to say, all right, let me talk to my manager and slash the prices for you. I said, hey man, here's our cost. We're really good. It's worth it. And that's fine. It's no big deal. But she came back, they couldn't get the loan closed, and she was glad to pay our deals because ours was actually real. And by the way, back to the under promise, over deliver situation, we're always going to estimate on your taxes, insurance cost, all the way across the board in the beginning because we don't want to have a frowny face at the end, right? So probably at the end, and I've told people I've lost business because of this in my career because I'm not going to swear that I can do it for this price. But at the end of the day, the price very well could have matched theirs at the end, but I wasn't going to swear to it because I wasn't for sure I hadn't verified their homeowner's insurance, or I wasn't exactly sure if they were going to pull the trigger now. So how many months of escrows did we put in there? So at the bottom line, like Mike said, get with somebody you trust. And by the way, if your agent trusts Mike, then you can trust Mike too, right? So the person that referred you to us, trust us, then jump in. And by the way, we're going to be best friends when it's all said and done. Mike and I both have the same feeling about this. Our customers are our buds. That's who we go out and have a brewski with and play golf and go to the park with and go to events with and stuff. That's, dinner. That's what we do.
Did you just say brewski? Is that what you said? Brewski.
Is that bad? Brewski? Have a
no,
brewski?
No. It's just, it's like, I think that's circa 1970, but we're okay. I mean, that's, you're
look at my glasses. I look like
Poncho. You're an old guy. You're retiring to Florida. That's what you do, right? So that's how it goes. Well, I just wanted to, I know you're on vacations or, you're on a fact finding mission, happen to stay in a place, but we didn't want to skip today. So I wanted to,
no doubt.
We're about 25 minutes into this thing, but I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew, because it's such a big deal these days on how fast people close and how quickly things go that, know what you're getting into, ask the right questions, and make sure you're making a good decision. So that way that whole process doesn't have to be so painful. And I think that's the message.
Two ignorant humans talking about stuff.